welcome you guys here. I'm a volunteer here, and I'm going to give you a quick briefing on what we have, what you're looking at here. This is the Space History Center, about how our American space program got started from the 1950s and all the way up through right before the moon rockets started being built. We ran out of room here, believe it or not. We had 40 some launch complexes that were built over the time, in the 50s to the 70s, and so they ran out of room, and they had these big moon rockets that getting ready to build, so they had to go over across the river, what we call it here, to Kennedy Space Center, and built two big pads over there where they launched the moon rockets, and then all the shuttles launched from those two pads. And now Elon Musk is using his Falcon rocket to launch people from there still today. And the people that just launched up to the space station a few days ago launched from one of those old moon rocket pads there. Real quickly, I spent 20 years in the Air Force, retired at Patrick, got a job soon after working here at the Cape Canaveral, at that time, Air Force Station. Worked here for 19 years on the range, as we call it, or the rocket ranch. And you'd say, well, how do you call it a rocket ranch? Well, they compare it to a farmer who's got cows, and they take them, if you have cows and you've got a farm, you move them from one pasture to another to eat grass or whatever. Well, here we move rockets from one launch pad or one building to another building, and then we put the pieces on it and move it to another one. And so they move the rockets around like they move cattle around on a ranch. So its nickname is Rocket Ranch, beginning from the 50s to the 70s. So numerically, the launch complex one's in the back, and it goes around the room. We also have a gift shop here. Chris is back there working today. Please go back and see him before you leave. But the American space program, at the end of World War II, we could have been talking Russian instead of English now. Because at the end of the war, the German scientists, which included Werner von Braun and his team, who built these V-2 rockets that Hitler was launching into England, killing people with. He built those, and at the end of the war, we discovered a bunch of them secretly stored underground, and so we brought them back here, and von Braun and his team, they were in Germany, and they were running away from the Russians. They did not want to surrender to the Russians. They wanted to surrender to the Americans. And thank goodness that they did. They went all the way to Austria from Germany to find Americans to surrender to. So thank goodness they did, because we then got von Braun, his team, their knowledge, and the captured V-2 rockets to help us start our space program with back here in the States. They first went to New Mexico and launched a couple of rockets out there, and what they did is they wound up launching one that went across the border to Mexico and happened to land in a Mexican graveyard. And so the Mexican government saying, if you can't control them better than that, you might want to find someplace else to go and do this. So they came here, and they found out there was 500 acres here on the cape, which is pointed, and it's out in the ocean, towards the ocean. So they came here, got the land, and we started launching them from here out over the water, where we don't have to worry too much about hurting people. Although during my 19 years here, I did have to dive underneath a pickup truck one time when they launched one, and right after it launched, it blew up and sprayed stuff everywhere. So I had to dive under a pickup truck one time in my 19-year career here to keep from getting hit by debris. So they blew a lot of stuff up in the 50s, 60s, and got started. So we're lucky we're not speaking Russian, because if the Russians had got a hold of von Braun and his plans, then they would have got control of all that, and they would have had the rocket knowledge and we would not.
Yeah.
And so that's a point in history that you talk about. That was a very critical point where it could have gone either way. Thank goodness those guys came and we were able to pick those guys up. All right, so they moved here to the Cape in the 50s. They started building launch pads, and they started out with the V2 rockets that they had brought from Germany. And then the Army had a rocket called a Redstone rocket, had explosives on the top. So they took explosives off and put a one-man capsule on top of it. And that's how the Mercury program got started, with the Mercury of Alan Shepard being launched into space as our first manned astronaut. We had astronauts before the men. They were monkeys. And when the monkeys and the astronauts were here together testing, they had to live in the same aircraft hangar. So you got a big aircraft hangar on one side, you had monkey cages. On the other side, you had astronaut rooms. And the astronauts were complaining. See, they were fighter pilots, and they were big egotistical guys, and they wanted to go first. You don't need to send monkeys. They said, we'll go, we'll go. And so they sent the monkeys up to fly and come back. They saw they were okay. And so, but the astronauts didn't like the smell of the monkey cages, and they didn't like the noise that the monkeys made. So without authorization, they went downtown to the Holiday Inn in Cocoa Beach and got rooms down there, and then they started partying big time and got in all kinds of trouble with that. So, but anyway, so that's what actually happened with the living quarters between the monkeys and the astronauts. And Elon Musk had the old style white rockets here. The small ones, what he started out with, the original SpaceX X Falcon, and the bigger one is kind of what he's launching now. And so he has Complex 40 leased from the government, and that's where he launches some from. And then the other ones he uses the old shuttle pad over on Kennedy Space Center. We have a touch screen that's been added here, the Space Force module here that you can go in. It's just been added. We had a remodel done here just about 3 weeks ago.
One guy that tells you right on top, water, warning, and all these other functions, and everyone's listed. And it's complicated. You gotta be smart. Not any average man can do this, or woman. And they do have both. This is just a tiny part of the whole launch.
Let me out. I can't breathe.
Wow, this year these are some of the first Americans in space, is what they're saying. The ships. When they landed on the moon, you know, on a Sunday afternoon, we had about 8 or 9 people together and watched it. It was very interesting.
This is how they farm today. People they just sit in the tractor. They don't have to do a thing because everything's computerized. and goes straight as an arrow. And notice how far to put the seeds down to make.
Very cool.
This is where they,
Yeah, hazard alarms, indications, warning system controls, process and water control, or water control. It is. System status over here. I guess if any of these lights light up, we're in trouble
you're in
maybe.
trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, these are.
And it is white sand, and I'm just trying to see if any of